Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to this, depending on however you look at your clock, early morning or middle of the night, bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this middle of the night or early morning bonus upload, shall we? Tonight's first encounter, the Sykesville Monster. I am a 72-year-old man, and this happened long ago, but I remember it very well. The background was a series of events that placed me in a mountain cabin just outside of Frederick, Maryland, circa 1969 or 70. Just say my life at the time was in disarray. I had dropped out of college, my father had died very badly, and I was alienated. I needed to get my mind right. The opportunity to move to an isolated cabin, to live in contempt and solitude was welcome. I had inheritance money to pay for it all, and to the best of my memory, I was there 8 or 9 months. No TV but books and radio. I had a library card, and I can't remember if I had a phone. The experience begins when a month into my stay, a female beagle shows up at my door. She was a lost dog. I took her in. Never really could train her to do anything, but I fed her, and she was sweet, if not the brightest dog. A few months in, I began to feel a presence around the cabin. It's hard to describe, but it felt like someone or something was watching. On many occasions, I thought someone or something maybe looking in the cabin window at us. The next phase was the shadowing, or following. I knew the folk a half a mile down the lane, woods all around, and would sometimes visit them at night. Someone or something was waiting for me, and followed closely in the woods beside me in the darkness. You could hear it easily, footsteps in the woods, and it picked up its pace as I did. This not only happened to me, but to my younger brother who visited, and to friends, and it spooked them big time. At night, it was out there, around the cabin. Here's the funny thing. I was never afraid, never felt threatened. Not at all, at least early on. There was no feeling of malevolence. I spent a good bit of time wandering the vast areas of the woodland around me. There was a state park just up the hill, and the Frederick Municipal Forest went on for miles. The whole of western Maryland was much more country than it is now. None of the development had set in yet. On our hikes, the dog and I, we'd come across evidence of campsites, recent ones in the woods, traces of fires, old abandoned buildings that had corners that gave shelter and looked like they had been slept in, garbage, food and drink, paper, what have you. Perhaps hunters, but much of it didn't have the organized feel you would get from an experienced hunter. The last month of my stay there was when things intensified. Maybe it sensed I was preparing to leave. In the mornings, I would find small dead animals at the bottom of the front porch steps. The cabin had a small front porch, screened with a light door, and 4 wooden steps to the ground. A spotlight would illuminate the long front yard with the woods close by either side. Dead animals began to appear at the bottom of the steps in many mornings. I remember small birds, then a squirrel, a rabbit, and even a weasel, like they were offerings. I had to grab them up before the dog came and ate them. This went on almost daily for several weeks. One night, very late, I was awoken by some sound. I lied in bed and heard something from the porch. I hopped up and hit the lights, and I saw the dog, who never learned to sit or stay, standing at the front door in perfect position. She shaking in fear. She never barked. I heard the door slam and footsteps go down the steps. I hit the spotlight, but I didn't see a thing. I went out. It had been on the porch at the front door, maybe trying to get in. After that, I stayed in at night more and more. The animal offerings got bigger and bigger. Larger birds, possum, a woodchuck. It's not funny. The final 2 gifts were legs from either a horse or a cow, big and bloody. One was skinned. Oh my God. The second to last day the dog left me, I could hear in the woods howling on a trail, following a scent. I looked for her every way I could. Came up in the following weeks, but to no avail. She had left as she came. I moved back to the Maryland suburbs of D.C., got an apartment with a buddy, got a job, and moved on with my life. One day, not long after, I picked up a Washington Post, and there was an article about recent encounters with the Sykesville monster. It's described as a Yeti-like creature, fur-covered on 2 legs that would pick out a family or a person and give them attention. I wasn't the only one. That attention, described in an article, was exactly what happened to me. Following you at night, looking inside the home, gifts, and so on, I was shocked. If I had turned on that spotlight and seen a Bigfoot or a Yeti, I may still be running. But I think I know who it is. Sykesville, Maryland was the location of the Springfield Hospital Center, a large state psychiatric hospital. It was 20 miles or so east of Frederick. Back then, many folk knew how to live in the woods. They grew up that way. Country folk. I think the monster was an escaped patient, or just a freed schizophrenic who lived outside. It's like all the homeless people you see in the cities now, probably off his medication, but somehow functional and lonely. He would pick a family to adopt. Those camps I found in the woods, they could have been him. Nothing to do, he'd make mischief. I think he liked me, but sensed I was leaving. I cannot prove any of this, it's just my theory. My monster was very much of that time and place, and his behavior was what I noticed in nearly every case. I don't think he could have survived through the 80s. The breakdown of mental hospitals threw the mentally ill out into the streets, and took away the shelter of hospitals. Unprotected, the mentally ill died off. It's a very interesting theory, and that's what the coolest thing about cryptozoology is it's based on theory and speculation. I don't really go along with the guy's theory, though, because there's far too many people that had seen the Sykesville monster and dealt with it as well. So, nevertheless, a very interesting theory and a very interesting experience. On to today's first compelling video clip. Is a gentleman is out in the woods and he starts to get a little kind of edgy feeling, proceeds to go into the woods a little further and hears some very strange growling. Let's get into it.
Guys, check this out. I finally found some footprints in the snow. This is my boot print right here. And look at this monster print. Look at them toes. You can see how deep down that heel goes. Look at that thing. Compared to my foot. And there is tracks everywhere. They go all the way down through here. Look at the size of these things. They go all the way back through there. They're going up in that trail. This one is definitely a major crossing through here. They've got a path that goes all the way down back into there and all the way around through that side. So I see these tracks and I stop right here. This is the very first print I saw. I was walking right beside it. I happened to glance down. I just saw all these prints, and you know, I've been seeing And there's deer and rabbit tracks everywhere. Look at all these things. You go all the way up in here. Look, you can see the toes. Look at the size. That's my little boot. Look at that monster foot. I'm shaking so bad I can't hardly keep the camera still. Did you hear it? Right back in there. Right back in there. Try to zoom it in a little bit and see. I can see something moving. You hear it? Oh man, you can hear that perfect. This is creepy out here by myself. I'm probably 3 miles away from my truck. Out in the middle of Salt Fork.
Definitely a creepy video, and I mean, you can see the comparison to the boot print, to the prints in the snow, and there's multiple of them, not just one. I always kind of found that funny when someone took a picture of, you know, look at this print I found, but there was only one print. Did it just hop out of the sky, land in the ground, and then just hop up and disappear? And then you hear the growling in the background, which is very, very interesting. On to tonight's second encounter. So thinking back now, it must have been around the early summer of 2014. It's been quite a long time, and of the weird supernatural or paranormal things I've ever experienced, this was the worst. To begin with, I used to smoke on top of my roof. You can chalk it up to being a teenager and liking to do dangerous things, although I always felt relatively safe doing so. While I had made a habit out of it for years, and it was sort of a fun thing for me to do back then, I really liked the peaceful vibe while stargazing and watching sunsets blowing smoke rings. Anyway, one night I did my regular routine, which was hand-rolling a tobacco cigarette. Really glad I grew out of smoking. And I sat in the middle part of the divided roof over the garage, which basically was the center of it. I had been so caught up in being careful climbing to my spot before I noticed something incredibly strange on the shed about 20 feet away, luckily not directly connected to the roof I was on. It was gray, lanky, emaciated, sinewy-looking creature. At first, my brain could barely process what I was seeing, and I thought it must be some sort of hallucination. My whole body was frozen for a good 10 seconds minimum. But I also knew that if this was a real creature, I was in danger. It had a silvery membrane flesh look. Unnatural skin covered sparsely in unkept patches of white hair. The creature's skin seemed to glow lightly in a reflective manner in the moonlight. It was very Gollum-like, but somehow thinner, primitive, and even more wild-looking. I do remember being flashed with a cat-like glimmer from the creature's eyes, so I can only assume it had a level of nocturnal vision. It was postured in a crab-like bipedal position, which is sort of funny because I actually had been in the similar crouching stance to keep my center of gravity low. No need to fall, right? It turned its head in a questioning, puzzled look, like it was surprised to see me there. When I started to slowly move, it mimicked my movements. It felt like it was mirroring me, which, if I understand correctly, can be a sign of aggression. Maybe curiosity, but I didn't feel welcomed. As I stared at it more, I could tell it was not a human, or if ever had been, it was so long ago, because its entire form was twisted and evil-looking, at least in a classical monster movie way. The last sequence I remember of this ordeal was that I instinctively pivoted around and in the same motion did a crawling dash straight back to my window, launched myself into my room, and slammed the window shut, locking it and dropping the curtain immediately. I never looked back because I knew if I did, I could die from whatever that thing was. So, toggling back to modern day now, this situation has haunted me and made me even more open-minded to the idea of cryptids being a real possibility. I was more skeptical of them before, but seemed to accept the existence of spirits more easily. I don't believe what I saw was a hallucination of any kind. It was definitely physical. The creature was solid and appeared to be on top of the shed, perched and monitoring me. I have told this to many of my friends and family so far, and a lot want to dismiss it as my imagination or being sleep deprived. All I know is I saw something otherworldly in that moment, or even something so strange and foreign that its shared residence on Earth is thought of an impossibility. If anyone has a reason to believe this is not a crawler, let me know. I do live in the Pacific Northwest of the States, and I've read about these cryptids before. I do remember feeling a complete overwhelming sense of frightened sickness for at least less than a day afterward. Tonight's second video is, well, a possible crawler video, and it is very, very creepy. And you can see its eyes and you can hear the noise that it's making. And the reaction of the guy that is filming it is, well, it feels real, I guess. I don't know. I look at it and I'm like, wow, this really may be a crawler. So, all right, check it out.
Can't really tell what it is, but it's been making noise for the last couple of hours. I don't know if it's a bird or an owl or what the it is. It's making some weird ass sounds. What the is that? What the is that? Keep poking his head out back and forth to what the is going on, bro? That shit look what the is that? What the is that? Keep poking his head out back and forth to what the is going on, bro? That shit look what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Keep poking his head out back and forth. What the fuck?
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure what that is, but the way the guy's acting and the sounds it's making with the eyes and how they're moving, it could be real. Now, on to tonight's final experience. I was 13 years old in Lake Orion, Michigan, visiting my mom's friend and their kids for the 4th of July weekend. Myself and a friend and their kids were roaming around the city late. We ended up walking down some residential roads. It was quiet and dead out, maybe 2 a.m. with no cars driving around. Just that real calm, peaceful time at night when hooligans run wild. Some of the kids wanted to go and do some ding-dong ditch, and I was the kind of straight-edged kid, so I went along with it even though it made me nervous. We had ding-dong ditched probably 5 houses at this point, and the kids started pressuring me to do it. It was my turn, and they were saying don't be a sissy and stuff. So they directed me to ring the doorbell of a house we were standing in front of. It was a smaller little white house, square-shaped, with some metal fencing around the back of the owner's dogs. I walked up and there was no doorbell, so I walked back and they said, just knock instead. So, as someone who didn't want to kill the fun, I went back and knocked to find they had already taken off running. I ran after them, and I don't know if I believed what they were saying, but even my friends said they saw it. Apparently, there was a face in the window the first time I went up, and the house was notoriously haunted. I was a little spooked and out of breath, We must have run a half a mile. I looked behind me to see if there was anything scary following us, and I saw this figure that I had always described as looking like it was made out of water. A humanoid figure, translucent, which makes the background behind them wavy, and had a defined outline. I figured my mind was playing tricks on me, and just kept walking, joking around with the others, looking back every so often. It was following us, and I could see it under the street lamps occasionally. The leader kid, who wanted to do the ding-dong ditch, looked to see what I was looking at and exclaimed to his friend, "Do you see that?" and took off running. My friend looked back and started running, and I was left again running after them. We ran all the way back to his house, probably through 3 miles, no sign of it behind us anymore, but I have never been so shaken or scared in my entire life. I was inconsolable. I was scared for a while I would see it again and find out it had been following me this entire time. It's been over 10 years and I've never saw it again. And I've never been able to find anything about it, this thing that we saw that night. And tonight's final, terrifying video evidence.
Wait, stay! Stay back! Okay, this is where we were when we just saw 15 minutes ago a live, I don't know, some sort of humanoid thing, I don't know. We're in the Enchanted Forest at Tofino, right by that tree over there. Yeah, that one. We saw it. Let's go see if we can, I don't know. Okay. Over there somewhere. See, that could be a possible footprint. I don't know. Could be. Like, look. Yeah, I bet, like, any foot would, like, cause some sort of indentation there. I don't know.
Well, there you have it, folks. Some very compelling video evidence and some very horrifying experiences to either end the night or begin the day. You pick. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that keeps the channel growing and going, and honestly, what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free, simply treated with the respect that they all deserve. Guys, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the answers. God bless.